to give an insight into the service offerings that we have for ISVs, this shouldn't be any more than sort of 10 minutes, but it's just really to, wrap up sort of a journey from here in terms of what you take and next steps from this particular workshop. So with regards to ISVs, we have a playbook, and for those who are have been paying attention, you'll be able to see the three pillars of our playbook for our ISVs in terms of our offerings mapped to the many things that we've already spoken about. So we have a discover and build, a launch and sell, and a support and operate series of solutions. And we help in three operational scenarios. We have ISV customers where we build a templated Azure environment for them to be able to offer to their customers as part of their application delivery. We have a scenario where we build single and multi-tenancy ISV environments for the ISV themselves to offer a full SaaS solution. And then we also help with application modernization. So any innovation that's needed or required to obtain some of the elements that Sean's already spoken about so far. In terms of discover and build, these things cover sort of the Azure landing zone, for example, app modernization, as I said, DevOps environment setup. And the key thing really is, as we said to Andy before he left, is that we've got a number of workshops around these particular elements. So some of you might already be aware of concepts such as the landing zone, but that's sort of a key cornerstone of an Azure deployment. Those are the types of things that will help with, and really what we look to add value is giving you a cost optimized infrastructure as part of your Azure deployment, making sure that your sort of release and change release management and how you release new iterations of your application are fast and scalable, that your environment is designed for optimal performance for your application, and just making sure that you're future ready. So all those things that we spoke about at the very beginning in terms of taking advantage of that market opportunity are the things that we look to put into the application and help you with that sort of that guidance around how you can evolve your application further. So AI enablement, for example, is a key element that we all should be looking at. From a launch and sell perspective, obviously we've gone through a lot of stuff with Microsoft. So obviously from what James said, and also the marketplace. And a few of you might have been sat there thinking, well, this all sounds really good, but how on earth do I actually leverage this and bring it about? And as part of our launch and sell pillar, we basically work with you as an ISV to map out your go-to-market strategy and execution around your Azure deployment. So we can help with your Azure marketplace entry. So as I said, we can help build the onboarding processes for that, guide you through the process, get you in contact with the right relevant people at Microsoft to help with that. We also help with co-branded templating. So as part of our wider network, we put you in front of our wider network. And in terms of sales enablement, we help with co-branded materials such as brochures or website pages, and a lot of the ISVs that we currently work with, they will really leverage our Azure Expert MSP status. So when they go to market with their application on Azure, part of that messaging is that their Azure environment has either been contributed to, signed off, or developed by an Azure Expert MSP. What does this mean in terms of our application delivery? Well, it's been done by a Microsoft partner of the highest accreditation of Azure. So again, it's all about differentiating yourselves in the marketplace, but also being able to prove that credibility. And one of the key things that we didn't over-labor with James on the call, but we can obviously talk about it now because Microsoft don't want us to go crazy with these types of things. But we can obviously help you tap into Microsoft funding programs and other resourcing initiatives. So the bottom element there is the Microsoft proof of concept. What we're able to do is we can get you Azure credits as part of your development or deployment strategy, where we can together with you create a proof of concept environment to test your application and test any developments to your application that you do. That will be funded by Microsoft in terms of crediting the consumption of Azure. Equally, we can help with other funding streams where we'll pull in resources like Fast Track that James mentioned, which is Microsoft side Azure specialists helping you on your deployment process. and your app modernization process. And there's other elements that we can bring to the table, and one of them being that cloud pilot assessment that I spoke about. So really, again, it's all about us helping you through all those benefits that Azure can bring and guiding you through due to our sort of really close and sort of expert knowledge of the Microsoft ecosystem. All of our salespeople are plugged into the relevant salespeople Microsoft side, as well as the various product marketing teams, modernization teams, architects, so we can help bring a room of the best people to help you with your journey. And then finally, with support and operate, obviously Sean's done a lot of the technical elements. As he mentioned, we do have our own managed services, so a number of our ISV customers will use our managed services, and our managed services are designed really as an enabler to help our customers, in the sense of we've got 3 pillars: cost optimization, technical performance, and security. And on an ongoing basis, we will manage elements associated with those 3, as well as making sure from a strategic perspective you're right on the pulse with any updates to Azure. But then secondly, what we also do as part of that is the pricing strategy. So those that might have engaged with other partners, a lot of managed services will be based on the sort of percentage of your Azure consumption, which, as you grow, means that your managed service grow costing or price grows significantly as well. So a lot of people will charge 40% of your Azure consumption as their managed service price. And the reality is that we essentially do a fixed price, fixed outcome for our managed services. And the reason for that is that we don't want an incentive to not optimize your Azure environment, because obviously the more you spend in Azure, the more the partner gets paid in terms of their managed service. And we don't want that to be the scenario. We purely want a scenario where we're optimizing your Azure environment as much as we possibly can, so that you've got more to then reinvest into Azure and other technologies and into yourself, so that you grow on an organic basis, and hopefully then we reap the reward of that in the future, because you've grown as an organization. So really, it's all about support from our managed service perspective, not just the actual physical support, but supporting you as an organization across the board. And then finally, we do ISV support. So one of the key things that we get asked about quite a lot is when you do move to or look to deploy your application in various regions, what happens to support? Because obviously the time difference causes issues with regards to offering support to those end customers. Obviously, we have our Centre of Excellence in Cape Town, which is a 24/7 operation. We're able to help with support triage, so we can help any customer queries, basically guiding them to some of your documentation for your application, but also doing sort of first line triage to make sure they get questions that they have answered, or any problems with regards to usability answered there and then. And then we also help with regards to change and release management, DevOps consultancy. Team augmentation is key to us. We've got a software development arm as well as other architects and engineers who can help you and basically work as an extension of your team. So we're very much sort of a broad support brush, in terms of it's not just the technology, but it's also the whole wider sort of elements that affects the way that your ISV operates and the success of your ISV. And then finally, this is sort of a process. So a couple of people have already asked about, what's can we have a bespoke conversation around what we need to do? This is sort of a traditional way that we work with regards to onboarding ISVs. So phase 1 is really looking at discovery and assessment. So what we do is we'll do an assessment, whether it be cloud migration or whether it be an app modernization assessment. And then we'll also help you build a business case and a presentation to present back to the rest of the business as to why we should move forward with this and the opportunity available to you. Phase 2 is then building out that Azure deployment, so the landing zone. And then phase 3 is actually doing any migration work that we need to do. And obviously phase 4 is the ongoing operational support. But at the bottom there is some of the funding streams that we can apply on your behalf and nominate you for. So the first one is Cloud Pilot. And the reason I've got an asterisk next to that is to remind me that off the back of this call, obviously as part of our status, we're able to nominate you for Cloud Pilot assessments. They only take an hour obviously the outputs Sean already covered throughout the workshop in terms of how they can help you and guide you on what an Azure journey could look like for your application. But the key thing is it's completely free, funded by Microsoft. And obviously, if anybody is happy to or would like us to nominate them, then that's absolutely fine. We can arrange a follow-up call. We need a few bits of information from you as part of that nomination, but the key thing is that you're going to get a really good report and understanding around your application within Azure, completely free of charge if you meet the eligibility. But it's something that it's something that obviously it doesn't necessarily affect you at all. Obviously, if we nominate you for it and Microsoft say yes, let's go ahead and do this, then you've gained something. But the key thing with the Cloud Pilot is that you're not losing anything by being nominated. So it's a really good platform to give you that first initial step into discovery. And then finally, POC funding and what's known as AMP funding, which is Azure migration funding. So POC I've already covered, but in terms of actually migrating your application to Azure, we can help with what's known as the AMP program, which is Microsoft's is Azure migration funding or Azure migration program, where essentially they basically provide resources, funding, skills, architects to basically help you build that journey towards migration and help you to accelerate that journey. So they can help with funding of certain elements, they can help with expertise with certain elements, and again, that's something that we would guide you through as well. So that sort of brings us to the end. There's a few customers that we've got there just to give you some examples. Obviously, we've got case studies on these as well. So, AI and Novia are in the financial sector, and again, they've gone through that chart that we've just gone through. So they've all gone through that process, starting with that Cloud Pilot report to gain an understanding of where they can get to, and then obviously us guiding them through that Azure journey. So we've got a lot of credibility within the ISV space from previous customers.